Hey guys, welcome back to Covenant Canon. The final episode of Season 2 has released, titled, unsurprisingly, Halo. And truth be told, this episode pretty much felt like what Halo should have been for the entire show. It had a bunch of action, had necessary plot points that were pretty much integral to the plotline of future seasons to come, if they are to come. And of course, the action sequences were absolutely phenomenal to me. And there was a surprising reveal at the beginning of the episode that really blew me away. Like, seriously, there really wasn't any section of the episode that I deliberately skipped or anything like that. And how the episode ended has me a little more optimistic about the future of the show thus far, if it's renewed for a third season. But without further ado, let's break down this episode. But for precaution, for those of you who have not watched the episode yet, a spoiler warning is now in effect. If you haven't already seen the episode yet, and don't want to be spoiled at all, I recommend stopping here. For everyone else though, let's begin. This is episode 8, Halo. The episode opens up with Master Chief talking to a mysterious voice. And for those of you who have watched Game of Thrones, this voice does sound familiar, but I'll talk on that in a little bit. Now, from the beginning, middle, and end of the episode, Master Chief is talking to this mysterious voice on what led him to where he is now. And I'll dive on that in a little bit. But just after this first encounter, we see a dormant spore coming to life again. Now, for those deep lore nerds out there, you'll know that this is none other than a flood spore. And immediately after we see the shot, we see Miranda in her lab with that strange artifact she recovered in the previous episode. There, her assistant pretty much chats up with her about the artifact, Halsey, and pretty much all other stuff, which is unsurprisingly annoying Miranda, so she sends her off her way. But before that, she asks the assistant if she touched the artifact. She denies this, but as we see all throughout this opening bit, we know that for a lie. We see a cheerful display going around the lab where she's talking up with her assistants and pretty much being all friendly. But this is just a calm before the storm. And the storm goes down really hard, really fast. We see her twitch, and then we see her go sickly, and finally we see her go aggressive. And we see black veins coming through the side of her neck. And I think everyone can see it goes downhill from there really, really quickly. The flood infection begins. And all throughout this episode, the flood infection gets from one person to the next, and it's just absolute chaos. The bodily expressions these flood-infected humans display, it really reminds me of World War Z zombies, pretty much. Now, I've seen a bunch of people on social media complaining about this, that it's pretty much nothing more than a sci-fi zombie genre thing, rather than the flood that we know from the games. Now, there is some merit to their complaint. However, I've always seen the flood kinda as that, zombies, space zombies. Now, I know that there's more to the flood than that, but I don't know. I've never been a flood fan myself. And we've already seen something like this in the core canon, most specifically in the Heart of Midlothian. I'm probably butchering that name, so please don't haze me in the comments. And I think it can be reasonably assumed that this is an early stage of the flood. Now, given the fact that the spores were dormant in that Forerunner facility for hundreds and thousands of years, I would say it's pretty much stretching its legs somewhat. The infection, I mean. And as the episode progresses, we already see the Flood turning into their combat forms, or at least starting to. We see tentacles popping out on some, and we see them malforming that they can pass through cells. This is evident when one of the infected forms is trapped in a cell between Soren's wife and son and Ackerson. It's just, it's absolutely mind-boggling how terrifying the Flood was in this episode. I don't know about you guys, but this was really captivating for me. Now, as I said, the Flood infection gets progressively worse all throughout the episode. Even in the Oni command center, the Flood infection goes absolutely berserk, infecting everyone, even Parandowski. And by the end of the episode, Halsey and Soren's wife are infected. The latter sadly sacrifices herself so that Soren can free their son and escape from the planet. Halsey, on the other hand, is put in cryosleep by the end of the episode, with Miranda vowing to find a cure for the Flood infection, all the while being trapped within her own facility as the Flood gets worse and worse. Now, this whole arc of finding a cure for the Flood, that has me worried. In the core canon, there's no cure for the Flood. The Forerunners tried countless times and never succeeded. Even the monitors of Halo rings have tried and failed, 343 Guilty Spark included. That said, I really hope we don't get a cure for the Flood at all, really. I don't know. It just doesn't feel right for the cure for the Flood to be explained in a TV show rather than the core canon. But all in all, I really loved the Flood as it was introduced in this episode. I kinda wish it wasn't based on Onyx. I would have rather preferred it being set on the Halo ring itself, but this is more of a minor nitpick on my account. Now, with all that said in mind though, let's move on to the Battle of the Soel system, just within orbit of the Halo ring. Near the first 10 minutes of the episode, we have Master Chief in his Condor being hailed by Margaret Paradowski. She tries to bury the bridge between them, and pretty much tries to act like nothing ever happened. Now, as we all expected, Chief isn't really having any of this and pretty much proceeds to his own mission. But he's not the only one. Kai and the Spartan 3s deploy for the third wave of the Spartan 3 deployment against the first fleet of Solemn Accord. As Kai is making a speech though, their Condor is destroyed by the Covenant fleet. And here we have the most chaotic jumps in all of Halo, where Perez is pretty much dangling in the void of space as Covenant ships are opening fire on her and the Spartan 3s. Though she manages to get control and heads towards a Covenant Corvette, we see the remains of Spartan 3s from the previous waves. It's really chaotic and gruesome to see how much the Spartan 3s are losing at this point. But in the end, Kai and several other Spartan 3s board a Covenant Corvette. Now before they board the ship, they notice a CAS-class assault carrier looming ahead above the fleet. And it looks absolutely gorgeous. I'm loving how massive and menacing the Covenant flagship is. As Kai and the Spartan 3s move throughout the Covenant ship, they notice other dead Spartan 3s, probably from the first and second waves. As they continue to navigate throughout the ship, they notice that no Covenant are there to encounter them. This sets them off, and as they progress further, we see, for the first and only time, a grunt on a plasma turret opening fire on them. Now, I'm glad the Sangheili, the Kigyar, and the Jirohane got their place in the show, but I don't know why the grunts were so reduced to this one scene. I don't know. They had a lot more screen time in the first season. I don't know why we're reduced to this one little itty bit for season 2. I don't know. It kind of bothers me, really. But once the first shots were fired, it's absolute chaos. the Covenant elites push back the Spartan 3s all the way to the hangar bay. With them being cornered, we see a UNSC fleet arriving, just in the nick of time. But just as Kai is calling for reinforcements from the UNSC fleet, the Covenant assault carrier pretty much wastes through all of them. With no reinforcements coming to back them up, Kai and the last remaining Spartan 3s push their way into the Covenant bridge, where she and Perez lose their ammo and have to force to pick up Covenant weapons, where we see Kai wielding a carbine and Perez a needler. I don't know about you, but this is a really cool scene, and it pretty much matches to normal Halo games, and some scenes from the books. But then, Perez is shot in the side, and she is grievously wounded. As Kai is dragging her all the way to the bridge, she grabs another needler and guns through the remaining Sangheili. With only the two and a remaining Spartan 3, they're prepared to make their final stand while Kai plants the spike to destroy the Covenant fleet. But before she's able to do so, the Master Chief storms in and kills through all the Sangheili in what is probably the best action sequence we've seen in Halo. Master Chief mows through all the Covenant elites and kills one of them with an energy sword, splitting him in two. Once all that is said and done, Master Chief walks into the room with a badass pose, and pretty much all the Spartan 3s are evacuated off the ship, while Kai remains behind. Beforehand, however, she and Chief have a bit of a moment, where they explain that they are practically the last of the Spartan 2s, which kind of follows the earliest developments of Halo, where it's stated that Master Chief is the last Spartan. Now, this is actually a really nice addition in my opinion. With the fall of Reach and Vanek's death and Riz's retirement, they pretty much are the last Spartans. And also, we see a few Covenant ships going after Var and McKee's Corvette. And that is his next mission, to go there and retrieve Cortana. Now in the next scene, we have Master Chief boosting towards the Covenant Corvette, where we learn that Var and McKee have emptied it, that they themselves have ejected all the way to the Halo ring, while the Corvette itself is entering the ring's atmosphere and is being torn apart. Parandowski tries to use Halsey to persuade John to veer back, but Halsey pretty much encourages him to go after her. Once inside the Corvette, Chief learns that Cortana's data chip was destroyed by McKee, which was seen a few moments before. As the Corvette is breaking apart in the atmosphere, Master Chief slams the controls, which allows Cortana to enter his armor somehow. I'm sorry, I don't know how she's able to integrate herself into his armor like that. It kind of seems like she's getting more of the weapons abilities like we saw in Halo Infinite, but it kind of seems a little too convenient to me. I'm not entirely sure. With Cortana now safely within Master Chief's armor, they have to brace themselves as their Covenant Corvette is being crash landed on a Halo. But as always, Master Chief is saved not with his Mjolnir armor, but with his plot armor. I'm not entirely sure how he got outside the Covenant ship before it was destroyed, but he did. And here we see Master Chief and Cortana on a Halo ring. And in one shot, it pretty much mirrors the Halo Infinite announcement trailer. And I love the classic Halo soundtrack being used for this scene. Now that they're finally on a Halo ring, they head out to a structure in the far distance. As John puts on his helmet and moves on, he grabs an energy sword, and it just looks absolutely amazing. Now, in the next scene, we have Var and McKee finally on the Halo 2, and Var is eager to begin the great journey, thereby fulfilling his redemption. And here we have McKee in the weirdest armor I've ever seen, ever. Like, her clothing was weird, but this is just... I don't even know what this is supposed to be, really. I don't know. Now, let's move on. As Master Chief, Arbiter, and Makee heads towards the same Forerunner structure, we're brought back to the space battle above, where the Covenant carrier is destroying the UNSC fleet. As Perez and the other Spartan 3 board their Condor, we have Kai remaining behind and pulling a George move and piloting the Corvette heading straight towards the Covenant carrier. And here, Kai rams the ship all the way through the Covenant carrier, exploding it and turning the tide of battle in the UNSC's favor. Now, granted, this is no Sith-based rupture bomb like we got in Halo Reach, but this is honestly the most cool and satisfying deaths for a Spartan 3. I was kind of hoping Kai was going to meet the same end as Kurt did in Ghost of Onyx, but this death pretty much solidifies her as honestly the Kurt of the Silver Timeline. With their flagship destroyed, the UNSC fleet is able to make swift work of the fleet of Solemn Accord. With all that said and done, the UNSC heads towards the ring as well as the Covenant. Now, before I move on further, before the flood outbreak begins in the Oni Control Center, we have Margaret Parandowski mentioning Admiral Stanforth. Now, for those UNSC nerds out there, Stanforth pretty much was a high-ranking UNSC admiral in the core canon. He died during the initial battle for Reach. But I have a feeling, now that Keyes is dead in the Silver Timeline, Stanforth might step in as the new Keyes for the Silver Timeline. Now, this is all just speculation on my part, but it would be a nice way to flush out Stanforth more for those of you who are not as keen in the lore as I am. But let's move on to Makee and the Arbiter heading towards the Forerunner structure. Just before Makee is able to open the door with her Blessed One abilities, I guess, Master Chief shows up, and here we have one of the coolest duelist scenes in Halo. Var Getanai and Master Chief go head-to-head in a 1v1 sword battle, and it is just absolutely satisfying. Though the VFX is a little bit dodgy here and there, it really was a fantastic scene. Now, I can't show you what the actual footage looks like without getting a copyright ban from Paramount, but let me just say, it was absolutely amazing. Now, as one might expect, the Arbiter initially has the better hand over Chief, knocking away his energy sword and just mopping the floor with him. But then it's round 2, and Master Chief shows off his abilities and uses his grapple shot against the Arbiter. Before long, Master Chief has Var Getanai on the ground and savagely beats him. Seriously, like a Jon Snow, Ramsay Snow type beating. And afterwards, oh my god, Var looks absolutely wrecked, like a broken mandible. Broken. It just, oh my god, it was so gruesome. As Var's lying down defeated, he begs Master Chief to end his life so that he can restore his honor and redeem himself. Makee, who is now fond of the Arbiter, is understandably saddened by this. He doesn't want him to die like this, but Var is insistent as he asks, what is a soldier that cannot fight? Makee translates the Arbiter's words, but Master Chief already knows what he wants and draws his energy sword and kills Var Getanai. Now, I loved the fight between Chief and Var, but I was really hoping that he wouldn't kill him. I really wanted to see him progress more in the show, but I had the gnawing feeling that they were going to take this route and kill him off. He killed Vanek in episode 4, and I think it was reasonably assumed that Chief was going to avenge his death. Even still, I'm so sad that Var Getanai is dead. You will be missed. You were my favorite character, and I loved you. With John standing over the Arbiter's corpse, all victorious, Makee is upset and activates the door to the temple, which activates other indication spires looming overhead. And we also have UNSC ships arriving just as all this is going down. Makee is towering over Master Chief overhead on the temple and proclaims herself a demon as well. And here we get her true motives to activate Halo, to end the cycle of war that Chief has brought to this sacred ring, and begin a new journey. Now as Makee is entering the temple, Master Chief and Cortana follow her. And here we come full circle to the conversation between Chief and this mysterious flying voice. And this voice is none other than a monitor of Halo, voiced by none other than Harry Lloyd, the actor of Viserys Targaryen from Game of Thrones. I knew I recognized that voice immediately when I heard it in the first couple minutes of the episode, and oh my god, I was so giddy for joy when I heard it. That said, however, the voice work doesn't quite sound like a monitor. Now don't get me wrong, I have no issue for the performance, but the sound effect doesn't quite sound like a monitor. Now in the past, monitors have always sounded a bit of robotic kind of alien technology sounding, if that makes sense. Whereas here, it kind of sounds a little too crisp for my liking. Now let's look at the monitor itself. It kind of has the same chassis as the monitors that we saw in Halo Infinite, and a bit of a weird, pointy bit at the top. I'm not entirely sure about that. As to the monitor itself, I'm not entirely sure if this is 343 Guilty Spark. Now, I think it can be reasonably assumed that this ring is Alpha Halo that we saw in Halo Combat Evolve. So it's definitely plausible that this monitor is none other than 343 Guilty Spark. But knowing the reputation of the Halo TV series thus far, it could very well be a new type of monitor. I don't know, it can go either way or the other. Now for the final scene of the episode itself, we have the monitor leaving the room in a hidden depth of the ring. And honestly, the inner bits of the ring looks honestly so gorgeous. It looks like the entire Forerunner architecture from the entire show itself just looks absolutely gorgeous. Everything looks and feels Forerunner to me. As the monitor leaves, we have Master Chief putting on his helmet where his visor is broken. And here, the final episode of Season 2 comes to an end. And yeah, like I said in the beginning, this episode felt everything like the Halo show should be. The progression of the Flood infection just looks absolutely phenomenal. I love the battle sequences above Halo, and I love the duel fight between the Arbiter and Chief. And that closing bit with the monitor actually has me very intrigued on what we might see thus far. With that said in mind, I would give Halo a 9 out of 10. It is everything I want in a Halo show, and it's a little late in coming, but I was so satisfied that I had no problem with the entire episode thus far. With all 8 episodes out, let me give you my short review of Season 2. In short, I actually had a really good time with this season. I love that we focus more on the Covenant War in this season than we had with the search and retrieval missions from Season 1. I love the introduction of Var-Ketanai, and I love his journey all throughout the show. And as always, I love Silver Team. I was so sad to see Vanek die, and Kai seemingly gone as well. Though I was a bit disappointed seeing Riz just retire, just as the human race was nearing extinction by the Covenant. And like I said, the finale was just everything I would have wanted in a Halo show. That said though, the show still suffers from some of the writing and character development for Chief, and all this useless subplot with Soren, Quan. I don't know. Every time I saw their sections, I just wanted to skip. And the worst thing I can ever imagine them doing is reducing the Fall of Reach to a single episode. The Fall of Reach was one of the most important and most devastating battles in the Human Covenant War. It had a book, a comic book, and an entire game developed around this arc. And to see this great battle just reduced to a single episode and just having it end with just the Covenant glassing it with nothing in it. And the first, second, and fifth episodes really just felt like filler to me. Like they didn't really feel like they were progressing the story at all. So with that said in mind, I would give Halo Season 2 a 7.5 out of 10. It was definitely an improvement over Season 1, though it's not really saying much for the show thus far. I'm very much looking forward to seeing Season 3 and how they take the direction of the Flood, the Forerunners, and the conflict on the Halo ring. And with Silver Team gone, hopefully we'll get more development from Chief and something that resembles more of him in the core canon. But what do you guys think of the season? What did you think of its finale? Who was your favorite character? Who was your least? Let me know in the comments below. And until next time, guys, may the light of the rings guide your path. Victory to clan and kin, Covenant fans. Covenant Canon, out.